Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'm Eric Mackey,
And I'm Christine Downs.
and we're trainers for Northeast PBIS. We're going to be talking about developing systems to support staff. The content for this training was developed by Northeast PBIS and the Center on Positive Behavioral Interventions and Supports. This is our roadmap for getting started with PBIS at the Tier 1 universal level. Hopefully by the time you're getting to this lesson, you and your team have gone through the first 8 steps. Now let's focus on developing systems to support staff. This is incredibly important as this is often where school-wide initiatives fall apart. Too often as educators, we're told to do something new without the support we need to get it done. We need to think ahead in how we can install systems, data, and practices to support school staff in implementing PBIS. Before we move forward with this module, please take a moment to make sure you have your action plan available, as well as your Getting Started workbook. We'll be working from section 2B9. Remember, we're trying to move away from the traditional train and hope model, where we provide some form of PD or a book and expect that the school faculty will miraculously implement everything due to sheer exposure. We know that train and hope doesn't work, so we're trying to be thoughtful and planful around how we roll out and sustain PBIS.
Eric, have you ever had that at a job you worked at?
Absolutely. Yeah. When I worked in residential as a counselor, I remember a program director saying, we're going to do the Boys Town model, giving us a book and saying, go to. And that was our training. That was our prep. That was everything. And needless to say, we never implemented that model.
I believe it.
So we're going to go through 5 key system features to supporting staff and implementing and sustaining PBIS. The first key feature is making sure we have a team to lead the implementation of PBIS. We want to make sure that there's a team developed to lead the PBIS efforts. Without the team, your PBIS efforts will be tied to 1 or 2 people. If those 1 or 2 people get too busy or leave, which can happen, your PBIS efforts will likely come to a halt. So you want to build a robust and sustainable team. When thinking about the team composition, it should be representative of your school as a whole, including grade level teachers, specialists, paraprofessionals, administrators, counselors, people with behavioral expertise. So really think about how you can round out that representation. I do want to highlight the need for regular administrator attendance on your team. Without someone there who can make decisions about resources and scheduling, your team will likely end up spinning its wheels and burning out. This team will organize and drive your PBIS efforts. So it's important to make sure that you have a representative team that you have norms and processes for making decisions to keep your team working efficiently and collaboratively.
And teams may have to reassess their participation yearly because they lose people.
Absolutely.
So step number 2 is to have a clear action plan. There should be nothing new to the folks in the PBIS Academy. We talk about action planning a lot. This keeps our teams working efficiently and effectively through having a clear plan. Action plans guide your PBIS efforts and help your team communicate that there's actually a methodical and well thought out plan for implementing PBIS to the staff. It acts as your roadmap. So please give our mini lesson on action planning a view for more detailed recommendations about how to action plan.
Our next key system feature is staff buy-in. You've likely learned by now that if staff buy-in, or you've learned by now that staff buy-in is key to any new initiative. If people don't like or don't believe in what we're asking them to do, they're not likely to put efforts towards its success. This is why your PBIS team should A, be representative of your school's population, and B, constantly seek the feedback of your PBIS efforts from your faculty. By doing these 2 things, you're communicating to your staff that they are heard and that they have someone at the table who understands them. This is also where data can be really helpful. And research can be very, very helpful. Data can help you to establish the need for PBIS. It can help you to show the progress that you're making as a community in implementing PBIS. It can also help you to show the positive impacts that PBIS can have on your school. Showing data to your staff can also help you to engage in a dialogue about what might not be working too. Ultimately, we want our peers to feel as though PBIS isn't another initiative that's being done to them, but rather one that they want that is being done with them.
Eric, a lot of staff will say, wow, we've been presenting to staff and getting their feedback and incorporating it, but we still have this small group of faculty who aren't bought in. So now what do we do with them?
Great question. I get that one too. And it's helpful to be just kind of planful around that and expect that to a certain degree. Yeah, just like with our students, there can be a few people who can take up a lot of time and resources. We need to be mindful of just how many people are actually not bought in. We don't want to stall our efforts based on the sounds of a few. We can put staff buy-in into a triangle just like we do with student behavior. So if we put the proper systems, data, and practices into place to build staff buy-in, then we can expect at least about 80% to respond and buy in and follow through.
Mm-hmm.
However, we can also expect that there will be about 15% who will be slower to buy in, who might be a little bit more hesitant, and who might need some additional supports to come around. So they might need some modeling, they might need some additional training, just encouragement, mentoring, coaching, peer-to-peer support, just to help them kind of feel confident in giving it a try. We can also expect that there will be about 5% who, despite our universal and tier 2 efforts, will continue to struggle around buy-in to PBIS. They may require more individualized support and likely some supervision too.
Mm-hmm. And what if one of the administrative team isn't bought in? Hopefully at least the administrator, the primary administrator's bought in, but sometimes the whole team isn't bought into the efforts.
Right, yeah, that can happen. Full admin buy-in is really critical. Otherwise, implementation will feel like an uphill battle for your team. It's helpful to use data and research to identify the why of PBIS for your administrators, such as the reduced office discipline referral rates, reduced suspensions, decreased disproportionality and discipline, improvement in school climate. Those are rather convincing arguments, right? Sometimes it's also helpful to provide administrators with opportunities to meet other admin, especially from other schools or districts who have had success with PBIS. That can increase kind of that confidence in implementing PBIS and supporting PBIS. It can also be helpful to engage a district level PBIS support person if you have that kind of role within your district, or you can often contact one of your academy trainers and we can provide some support as well.
As well as hooking them up with those other admins.
Absolutely. And of course, as with any behavior, if you see your admins taking some steps, taking some risks in advocating for PBIS or supporting PBIS, we want to acknowledge those steps and thank them for those steps.
So our next key system feature in implementing PBIS is embedding professional development throughout the year to support staff. We want to be thoughtful about professional development, especially thinking about training, coaching, and feedback. Doing this improves your chances of getting the outcomes you want. So your staff is going to need explicit training on how to implement the key features of PBIS, how to teach the lessons, how to properly acknowledge students, how to accurately use that newly created discipline system. So it's important to schedule time within district and building PD if possible, as well as scheduling certain parts of the staff meeting or grade level meetings whenever you can get in there. The trainings don't have to be long. In fact, they can be quite short, but teams should plan out those opportunities throughout the year to teach and practice the skills so we increase staff effectiveness. As far as coaching, we don't mean the PBIS team coach. Rather, we're talking about the entire team helping to coach and prompt the entire staff in implementing PBIS practices. The team might think about using announcements in the morning to remind staff and students about which behaviors or locations we're working on, or we might model for staff how to deliver an acknowledgments like alongside our peers, like at lunch or recess. And then lastly, we want to think about performance feedback. How well are people doing those practices? And as a team, you're going to want to talk to each other and identify the most appropriate person to provide that feedback around practices. Ideally, it should be someone who does not evaluate staff, someone with whom your teachers trust and who has the time and capacity to provide live observations and corrections and feedback. Often this might be your pupil personnel type people, psychologists, social workers, counselors. When providing feedback, they should try to be as objective as possible to reduce that chance of staff taking it personally. We know it can be tough when people feel like they're under the microscope. So that positive, supportive feedback is critical.
We've saved the most fun part for last. Like students, we want to make sure that our faculty are recognizing their efforts of implementing PBIS. As much as educators love their jobs, they're never acknowledged enough. Full stop. As a students, if we want to encourage desired behaviors like teaching expectations or handing out tickets, we need to provide feedback to make sure that that happens. Furthermore, if we want teachers to acknowledge and support students, we need to make sure that the staff themselves feel acknowledged and supported.
So sometimes staff will say, or teams will say, this feels like it's coming across artificial or insincere, and do we really need to recognize teachers on top of their paycheck? Isn't it what they're supposed to do?
You know, I get that question all the time. We should absolutely acknowledge teachers, as they rarely get enough thanks and recognition for their efforts. Now we're potentially asking them to try something new, so adding motivation can only help. Furthermore, we want to make sure that what we provide to them is sincere and desirable. So we want to make sure that we ask them what they want. Even if you don't have extra money in the budget, there are lots of ideas on how you can acknowledge staff on pbis.org. Some common systems out there are shout outs via email or in newsletters, preferred parking, coffee gift cards, coverage for class. Again, make sure to ask your peers how they want to be acknowledged. We want this to be reinforcing and not aversive. You can also think about incorporating your PTA or PTO into staff acknowledgements.
So thank you for taking time to learn about developing systems to support your staff. Now it's time to meet with your team and discuss strategies for building buy-in, embedding professional development, and creating systems for acknowledging your staff. Be sure to update your action plan as appropriate. For more information, please check with pbis.org, anypbis.org, or contact your trainer. Thank you.
Thank you.